You're watching the largest rocket ever built thunder off its launch pad. 33 engines firing in perfect unison. A 7-month wait is finally over. And then, the booster tries to come home and falls apart in the sky. But here's the thing SpaceX didn't tell you in their highlights reel. That wasn't the story of Flight 12. Not even close. Because while the world fixated on an exploding booster, the spacecraft itself quietly did something that should have been impossible at this stage of development. I'm going to show you exactly what happened, and exactly why it means we are closer to Mars than most people realize. 7 months. That's how long the Starbase facility in South Texas went quiet after Starship's last test flight. 7 months of redesigns, rebuilding, and rethinking nearly every major system on the vehicle. And when SpaceX finally rolled out Flight 12, it wasn't really the same rocket at all. The Super Heavy booster, the first stage, had been completely rebuilt from scratch. Not upgraded, rebuilt. It now carries 33 brand new Raptor V3 engines. And these aren't just stronger than what came before. They're simpler, fewer parts, less weight, more thrust per kilogram than any Raptor that flew before them. The launch pad itself was reconstructed too. SpaceX designed it specifically to handle rapid back-to-back launches, not just occasional tests. Think of it like upgrading from a 1-lane dirt road to a 6-lane highway. And then there was the first launch attempt. It was scrubbed, not because of weather, not because of an engine fault, because a single mechanical arm on the launch tower, a fuel loading arm, got stuck. One arm, one stuck mechanism, a rocket the size of a 40-story building grounded. That, in a nutshell, is the challenge of spaceflight. You can build the most powerful machine in human history, and a stuck door hinge stops everything. But they fixed it. And 24 hours later, Starship Flight 12 left the ground. The moment those 33 Raptor V3s lit up, something was immediately different. Stack cleared the tower faster than any Starship before it. That's not just an aesthetic difference. It matters enormously. Faster liftoff means less time in the most dangerous phase of flight, when the vehicle is slow, close to the ground, and most vulnerable to failures. The new fueling system played a big role here too. The redesigned launch pad loaded propellant dramatically faster than previous iterations, shaving critical minutes off the pre-launch sequence. Then came the moment everyone in the space community was watching. Hot stage separation. The moment the upper stage Starship fires its own engines while still physically attached to the booster, literally blasting itself free using exhaust gas as a battering ram. It worked. Clean, crisp, exactly as designed. And that's when the two halves of this story split apart, almost literally. The Super Heavy booster had one job after separation: flip around, restart its engines, and perform what's called a boost back burn, slowing itself down and guiding itself toward a water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. It didn't make it. Multiple Raptor V3 engines failed to restart during the boost back burn. Without enough thrust to control its trajectory, the booster lost attitude. That means it started tumbling. And a 70-meter-tall rocket tumbling through the upper atmosphere at hypersonic speed has exactly one destination: it exploded. Now, and this is the part the headlines almost always get wrong, SpaceX was not attempting a tower catch on this flight. The plan was always a water landing, a controlled splashdown test. So losing the booster was a failure. But it was a failure within the scope of what this test was designed to learn from. In fact, the data from those engine failures is arguably more valuable than a clean landing would have been, because now SpaceX knows exactly where the Raptor V3's reliability gaps are, and they can fix them before those engines ever need to perform a tower catch. Meanwhile, 100 kilometers above Earth, the Starship upper stage was doing something remarkable. One of its 6 Raptor engines failed after separation. 1 engine down out of 6. On a less capable vehicle, that's a mission ender. On this Starship, the remaining engines compensated. The ship held its attitude, maintained its trajectory, and accelerated to near-orbital velocity. Let me put that in perspective. Near-orbital speed means approximately 7.5 kilometers per second. That's fast enough to race around the entire circumference of the Earth in about 90 minutes. And Starship did it with 1 engine out on only its 12th test flight. But SpaceX wasn't done showing off. The ship successfully deployed 20 mock Starlink satellites, not real ones, but mass simulators designed to test the payload deployment system. The hatch opened. The mock satellites separated cleanly. The hatch closed. And accompanying those simulators were camera-equipped test satellites. small spacecraft that separated from Starship and turned their cameras back on the vehicle, capturing footage of Starship in the vacuum of space from the outside. Think about that image. A camera in space filming a spacecraft the size of a skyscraper. The footage was extraordinary. Then came reentry. This is where Starship earns its heat shield, literally. The vehicle slammed back into the atmosphere over the Indian Ocean, decelerating from near-orbital velocity. Temperatures on the heat shield tile surface hit thousands of degrees Celsius. The upgraded heat shield performed exceptionally well, far better than previous flights. The tiles held. The plasma plume, that dramatic orange-pink glow you see in re-entry footage, was controlled and consistent. Starship executed a controlled descent, orienting itself for splashdown using its body flaps, the large aerodynamic fins near its base. To steer and slow down, it splashed down. And then it exploded, which, again, was completely expected. The vehicle was never designed to survive this test. SpaceX was testing whether it could control the descent and hit the target zone. It did. The explosion after splashdown is simply what happens when a vehicle full of residual propellant hits the ocean at high speed without a landing burn designed to survive it. That comes later. So where does this leave us? Flight 12 was messy. One launch scrub, a booster that fell apart before landing, an engine failure on the upper stage. But here's the honest assessment. The new launchpad worked better than any before it. The fueling system was dramatically faster. The hot stage separation was clean. The upper stage reached near-orbital velocity with an engine out. The payload deployment system worked perfectly. The heat shield survived re-entry. The splashdown was controlled. The biggest open question, and SpaceX will tell you this themselves, is Raptor V3 engine reliability. Multiple engines failing on the booster's boostback burn is a serious problem if you want to reuse boosters, catch them with the tower, and launch weekly. That is the engineering challenge standing between where Starship is today and where SpaceX needs it to go. Because the roadmap from here is ambitious. Tower catch of the booster, full orbital missions, actual Starlink satellite deployments, and eventually, if the engines can be trusted, crewed missions to the moon under NASA's Artemis program, and then Mars. Flight 12 wasn't a failure. It was a data collection exercise that cost hundreds of millions of dollars and produced results that no computer simulation ever could. That's how Starship gets to Mars. Not in one giant leap, but in a series of controlled, documented failures, each one more capable than the last. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments, what do you think SpaceX has to solve first before Starship is truly ready? Is it engine reliability, the heat shield, the tower catch system? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. If this breakdown helped you understand what actually happened on Flight 12, not just the explosions, but the engineering story underneath, subscribe. We cover space exploration, technology, and science like this every week. No filler, just the real story. And if you want to go deeper, I've linked our full breakdown of how Raptor engines actually work in the description. Because understanding the engine is how you understand everything else. See you in the next one.